I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Level 350. American 11, climb maintain level 350. American 11, Boston.
Many people escaped tragedy that day. Among those are people who luckily visited the towers the day before. Others were men and women who, for various reasons, were late for work that morning. Some label their close call as sheer luck. Others say it was divine intervention. And some are left to forever question, why them and not me? As the events unfolded on that day, so many Americans took action, doing whatever needed to be done to help their fellow citizens. Heroes emerged from every corner, and today let us remember them along with the victims of September 11th.
So you were prepared to take your own life, if necessary, to bring down that plane?
Of course.
Where were you, and what do you remember you were thinking when you heard that another plane hit the Pentagon?
Sickened that we weren't airborne first. For the larger aircraft, again, it would simply be taking off the tail, which would be, I would essentially be a kamikaze and ram my aircraft into the tail of the aircraft.
In 2001, healing was to us, kindergartners, a Band-Aid and a kiss from mom. But for so many other people, in 2001, healing became a week-long, month-long, or even decade-long ordeal.
It appears that there is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building.
A lot of uncertainty right now as to what is happening.
The two towers are home, at least during the day, to upwards of 50,000 workers.
The attacks on our country on September 11th, 2001 left Americans numb, but after the shocking reality came into the light, we had to stand up and face the future. The recovery process is ongoing. For many, it will be a lifelong process, and even 12 years later, the wound reopens as people revisit Ground Zero for the first time, or even simply board an airplane. Facing the day is never easy, though. It's painful and it takes courage. Courage that in some cases has taken 12 years to muster. Growing up in the post-9/11 world has made it evident for our generation that healing is so much more than a Band-Aid. Healing takes time, healing takes strength, and healing takes a community and a nation standing united.
In a few minutes, the town of Rentham will dedicate its new 9/11 memorial.
And the driving force behind the monument is a high school sophomore. He wanted to make sure that people in his hometown never forget what happened.
As the country healed, our own town 209 miles northeast of New York City did as well. Last year, Rentham dedicated its own September 11th memorial on the 11th anniversary of the day that hurt our community as much as it did communities even closer. Rentham Boy Scout Troy Newbecker worked tirelessly fundraising and coordinating for the memorial, which appropriately stands prominently in front of the town hall.
I was kind of young at the time, but once my parents explained it to me when I was older, I definitely thought it was important to have something to remember.
Amazing for a kid who was just 4 when the attacks happened.
I definitely can't say I completely understand 9/11, but I understand it was a big event and that it needs to be addressed.
Hi, my name is Ryan Brennan, and my father was in the South Tower of the World Trade Center on the day of 9/11. My father worked as an electrical engineer. It required him to travel a lot, so this was just another meeting. He was called into the World Trade Center on the day of September 11th. He was on the 22nd floor, I believe, and around 8:46 a.m. he said he felt the building shake, and all of a sudden papers were just kind of flying out the window. No one really knew what was going on. They started evacuating, and then since no one really expected that it was a terrorist attack, someone came back in and told my dad that the South Tower was fine, the North Tower was just the only one on fire. He went to a payphone and he called to our family, and he just told my mom that he was all right. And he said in that moment, like as soon as the second plane hit, he knew that the United States was under attack. So it was a pretty heavy experience. I mean, he watched several dozen people jump from the World Trade Center to escape the fires. One of his friends was caught under the rubble when the South Tower collapsed. And just the stories he tells. He told me about how he saw like two sides of humanity that day, relating to the American people. He said when he was walking out of the South Tower, he saw people in shoe stores throwing shoes to women in high heels so that they could run faster. But at the same time, he went to a hotel, and people at hotels were charging triple for people who needed a place to stay. And hotel managers were saying, you can't stay in our lobby or else we're gonna call the police. And my dad just remembered a ton of people yelling, yeah, go ahead, call the police, where do you think they are? They're not gonna come. He heard an explosion and a lot of screams, and he thought that another plane had hit. And he looked back and the South Tower just collapsed right in front of him. Yeah, he doesn't like to talk about it much, but he told me stories about how police officers that he had talked to later told him, like people that worked in New York, later told him that in the New York Police Department for weeks and weeks they had a collection of cell phones, people's cell phones, as evidence, and they just rang constantly, hour after hour. Just like eventually people just had to shut the cell phones off at the police department because it was too heartbreaking, because loved ones were just trying to reach these people that weren't answering. My father's never really been able to talk about what happened. I learn more and more every year. And after 9/11, when he came home, he was just silent. It wasn't until the 10th anniversary that I actually saw him cry. This year he's taking a more physical step. Today, on September 11th, 2013, my father's taking a flight into Chicago. After battling an event that compromised his career, he's finally able to travel again. It's a big step for him, and I'm really proud of him that he's able to do this.
In 2003, an international design competition was held to create a memorial for the 9/11 victims. 63 nations participated and 5,201 submissions were collected. The winners, architects Michael Arad and Peter Walker, wanted to create something that honored the loss and emptiness that was left after the attack. They called it Reflecting Absence and designed the 2 reflecting pools that mark the footprints of the original towers. They designed the rows of names which enclosed the pools, a reminder of the countless lives lost. Each name was carefully engraved into the stone, along with the names of the fire engines and ladders that were used to rescue victims. On site of the memorial is also a museum, 110,000 square feet of exhibition space that holds important artifacts from 9/11, as well as displays and archives that have been donated. Some of the most memorable photographs from this anniversary each year are those of the Tribute in Light, shining 4 miles into the sky in Manhattan each year from dusk until dawn on September 12th. Such a powerful work of public art pulls the eyes of New Yorkers up when spirits are down, uniting a city and a nation without fail every year.